Hello, you're watching the Ruslan Belov channel, and today we're going to discuss the situation in Ukraine as of July 23rd, 2025. A huge number of events have taken place today, so let's get started. But before we begin, I'd like to kindly ask you to subscribe to the channel. Your subscription helps the channel grow. Thank you to everyone who has already subscribed. Now let's move on to the front line. There is a lot of interesting news, and we'll start with the Sumy front, where fierce battles are still ongoing for the settlement of Kondrativka. Today, Kondrativka once again changed hands in map updates. Some map overlays show it as a grey zone, others as being under the control of the armed forces of the Russian Federation, AFRF. Let's take a look at how the map looked just yesterday. Most of the map had either been coloured in as under Ukrainian control or marked as a grey zone likely to revert to Ukrainian control. Only about 10 to 15% was left marked under Russian control. Today, the map is being updated again. According to various neutral cartographers, the remaining eastern part of Kondrativka has moved into the grey zone. However, the northern part has once again been marked under Russian control. Here's footage published by Ukraine's 225th Assault Regiment, showing drone strikes on Russian assault troops moving through the northern sector of the village. Just yesterday, or rather the day before, there was also verified footage of Russian units counter-attacking toward Kondrativka from the northeast. This appears to be reinforcements that have arrived and are now trying to stabilize the situation from the northeast and possibly launch another counter-attack on Ukrainian forces to regain full control of Kondrativka. Based on this footage, we can assume that most of Kondrativka, except for the northeastern part, is fiercely contested. One building is under Ukrainian control, another under Russian control, and yet another basement is back in Ukrainian hands. In short, the entire village is ablaze, and there's nowhere left to hide. The settlement is likely to be completely wiped off the map soon and turn into a no-man's land, with neither side able to establish lasting control. A bit to the east, the Russian Ministry of Defense reported the full clearing of the village of Vorochina by the Northern Forces grouping. This information was also published on the official Telegram channel of the Northern Forces. But in terms of event chronology, the village appears to have been cleared yesterday. Footage from yesterday showed several Russian soldiers raising flags in the southern part of the village, though it seems that some pockets of resistance remained throughout the evening, which were neutralized over the next 24 hours. Today, the battle is essentially over. Now the question is, what will the Russian army do next? There is Yunakivka nearby, but also the unresolved issue of Kondrativka. Most likely the now freed-up units will be redeployed westward toward Kondrativka to counterattack Ukrainian forces and secure the area once and for all. Next, we move to the Kupiansk sector, more precisely the southern Kupiansk front. Here, the Russian army has made additional gains. We've marked these new gains in a brighter white color to distinguish them. These are forest lines and areas that Russian forces managed to clear, based on mapping services including the pro-Ukrainian deep state. We can see that fighting in this pocket between the Nitrius River and the villages of Zelenaya Dolina, Lipov and Red Kodub is winding down. Once the Russian army reaches the Nitrius, it will likely continue its advance along the river toward the village of Serednya and then toward the Shandry Halov River. The offensive here is ongoing. Moving to the Kostiantynivka sector, there's not much new today. As for the town of Chasiv Yar, there are no significant updates. Russian drones and aircraft are operating, identifying Ukrainian communication posts, mortar positions, and anti-tank setups, all being targeted by Russian artillery and drones. Preparations for a potential offensive are underway. In the southeastern direction of Kostiantynivka, fighting continues for Oleksandr Shultine. There are several important updates here. A few days ago, the Russian Ministry of Defense announced the complete clearing of Bilahora. However, no visual confirmation or geolocation was provided initially. The next day, footage was released showing Russian forces entering the western part of the settlement, closer to the center, not just the edge. Today, Russian sources released another video, this time from the western outskirts of Bilahora. The footage shows a Russian soldier raising a flag there. This confirms 100% that Bilahora has been cleared. And given that the soldier raised the flag openly, Without fear of Ukrainian FPV drone strikes, it's likely that Russian assault troops have pushed much farther westward, and fighting is already happening for Oleksandr Shultine, which is now in the grey zone. Some cartographers also published map updates showing advances from southern Dilevka along the railway line toward Oleksandr Shultina. The Russian army is approaching a small Ukrainian strongpoint, and after the battle for Shultine, the pocket southeast of Predtekin may collapse automatically. This pocket contains a large Ukrainian force and fortified positions. Once the front line is leveled, Russian forces may begin an assault directly from Kostiantynivka, as there will be no more natural barriers from the direction of Oleksandr Shultin and Predtekina. Further south, in the Klebanbik pocket, Russian forces have improved their positions significantly in the village of Sherbinivka. We've updated the map accordingly. Just a few days ago, Russian troops began advancing here, effectively cutting off this salient. The offensive began around July 19th, and since then the Russian army has steadily pushed forward, gradually slicing up Sherbinivka. As of July 20th, this was how the map looked. By the end of July 21st, reports indicated the southern part of Sherbinivka had been cleared, and by July 22nd, the eastern outskirts were reported cleared, with Russian forces advancing toward the village center. Now, by the end of July 23rd, we're receiving reports that the southern and southeastern parts of the Klebanbik pocket have been fully cleared and are under Russian control. Most likely the Russian army won't stop here and will continue its offensive, this time toward the northern, northwestern, and northeastern parts of Sherbinivka. Additionally, reports indicate that Ukrainian forces have abandoned a company-level strongpoint located between Novospaska and Katarinivka. Pro-Russian cartographers have already updated the maps accordingly. Now we move toward Yablunivka. This area may also soon see map updates. Some cartographers are reporting Russian advances in the fields toward the central and eastern parts of the village, and the maps are being adjusted accordingly. The situation suggests that Yablunivka and Oleksandr Kaliniv will soon be fully cleared, but most likely after the ongoing negotiations end and full-scale combat operations resume. Now we move toward Highway H32, where we're still getting reports of localized breakthroughs by Russian forces across the northeastern perimeter. Neutral and trusted cartographers report Russian advances west of the village of Razin and south of Fedorivka. A network of Ukrainian strongpoints between Fedorivka and Novoekonomichne has reportedly been cleared. There are also reports of an expanding Russian control zone from Novotoretsk northeastward toward Pankivka and Volodymyrivka. These updates come from neutral analysts and are based on verified sources that confirm not only presence but dominant control by Russian forces in these areas. However, pro-Russian analysts, who often have closer ties to units operating in the area, paint a bleaker picture for Ukrainian forces. According to some of them, Russian troops have not only reached Volodymyrivka, but already moved past it and are now trying to consolidate control over the southern side of the key logistics hub of Kharkov. If we summarize all the available reports from pro-Russian sources, it appears that Russian forces are already operating in the vicinity of Kharkov, and fighting is underway for this critical logistical junction. Moreover, the same pro-Russian experts report that Russian forces have also broken through toward the settlement of Zapovedny and are now attempting to consolidate their positions on the eastern outskirts of this village. This is not just a breakthrough, it effectively indicates a complete collapse of Ukrainian defenses northeast of Mirnohrad and Novoekonomichny. More importantly, this shift signals a change in Russian tactics and priorities for the current offensive. Initially, it was expected that Russian forces would move toward the town of Rodinske to take control of it and form an encirclement of Ukrainian forces across the entire Pokrovsk agglomeration. However, despite public statements and the information currently circulating online, it now appears that the offensive in that direction has either slowed down or halted altogether. Instead, we now see that Russia's main focus has shifted northward, toward the settlements of Kucherev Yar, Sofiivka, and Zolotai Kolodiaz. It appears that Russia is seriously planning to advance further north, possibly piercing and exploiting weaknesses in Ukrainian defenses. The aim seems not only to expand the bridgehead here, but also to establish fire control over a key supply line, specifically the one running from Dobropilya to Kramatorsk. If this road is cut, the offensive could continue westward toward Dobropilya and Belitske, with the goal of completing the encirclement of the Pokrovsk urban cluster. So currently, the main focus is on the northern axis, not only around Zapovedne and Shakov, but also in the direction of Rusin Yar and Poltavka, where several map updates have already been made by various cartographers. At the same time, Russian forces are increasing pressure and intensifying combat on the southern flank of the encirclement. Reports suggest they are advancing along the railway line toward Mirnohrad, coming from the direction of Novohrodivka. Independent cartographers are making corresponding updates to the map. In addition, there are confirmed reports of an expanded Russian presence on the southwestern flank of Pokrovsk. Moreover, there are credible reports of a strong breakthrough. If we look at Pokrovsk as a standalone agglomeration, excluding Mirnohrad and Novoekonomikne, and focus on the smaller ring of settlements, Chynashine, Novukrainka, Novopavlivka, Pokrovsk, Leontovichi, Troyanda, Zverovo, then Russian forces currently control 5 to 10% of this circle. Another localized breakthrough occurred today, and Russian forces are reportedly securing positions along Kyivska Street, Pavlo Popovich Street, and Heroyev Krut Street, among others. At the moment, there is no visual confirmation of Russian forces specifically in this area, but it's likely that the first verified footage will emerge soon. Russian forces are also gradually intensifying their assault on the village of Udakne, moving toward its southwestern outskirts. Udakne is already partially encircled, and the fighting for it will likely escalate in the coming days. Regarding the southern Donetsk and Dnipro directions, there are no major updates. According to various cartographers, Russian troops have improved their positions in the fields toward Oleksandrohrad and also in the direction of Andriivka-Klevtsove. The overall picture here suggests that the Russian army does not currently plan to push beyond the Dnipropetrovsk and Donetsk regional borders. Instead, they are advancing slowly, steadily, and most importantly, safely toward the remaining villages in this sector. So far, we have not received any new updates regarding the village of Zeleny High. Perhaps after the third round of negotiations concludes, we'll learn more about its current status. We now move to the Zaporizhzhia direction, where Russian forces have intensified their offensive. According to open-source reports, over the past 24 hours, the Russian army has significantly improved its positions in the area of Kamyanske, specifically along the M18 highway. Today, pro-Ukrainian cartographers have published footage of objective control, showing Ukrainian troops and various brigades targeting Russian assault units with FPV drones in the central part of the village of Plavny. This footage was recorded at that location. Based on it, the map has been updated accordingly. The southern part of Plavny is now under full Russian control. Heavy fighting is ongoing for the village center, with Russian forces steadily advancing. Their main objective is to reach Stepnohirsk. Despite the intense battles in Plavny, the Russian army is advancing more confidently northeast of Kamyanske. This information is being reported today by both neutral and pro-Russian sources. This is what the map looked like yesterday, July 22, 2025. Today, there are significant updates across the perimeter, and we can see that Russia is confidently expanding its presence in order to reach key supply routes leading toward Orikhiv. And that's all for today, dear friends.